Since Minecraft was released, some players have reported seeing strange creatures or have had haunting experiences. Most of these have yet to be explained, but some have been proven real, starting with the Blood Dragon, a gruesome monster said to roam the skies during rare blood moons, terrorizing the overworld. Spewing blood from its mouth, this dragon is able to transform any creature into a mindless servant. These bloody creatures then roam the world, infecting others and growing the dragon's control. Whole villages will fall from just one drop of the dragon's blood, often creating horrific blood villages. However, players are not affected by this curse in the same way. If a player so much as touches a drop of its blood, the blood will instantly absorb into their skin before exploding them into a red mist. Though this blood dragon is a powerful mob, it is not without its limits. Believed to have been stolen away from its mother by a blood witch, his dragon egg was cursed and bound to the blood forever. This means that once the blood moon fades and the blood begins to dissolve, the dragon will vanish with it, and his minions will shed their blood forms. Players believe that it's still out there, just like the Nightmare Disc 16, the music disc of death. This myth began when a number of players were found murdered in their homes. Horrific sounds would always be heard before their deaths were uncovered, and even though each player had died in a different way, their bones were all found lying next to their jukeboxes, as a strange disc floated next to them. Unfortunately, one player's curiosity got the better of him. Taking the disc and inserting it into his jukebox, he heard an assortment of unsettling noises. It almost sounded like a sudden pouring of water, then someone struggling to swim, and then drowning. As the disc scratched to an end, the player heard a haunting but familiar noise. Water had begun flooding out of the walls of his home, and for a brief moment, a terrifying figure seemed to appear. Panicked, the player attempted to open his door, but found it blocked. With the water now pouring in faster, he was running out of time and was struggling to break any blocks. Unable to escape, the player pulled out a book and quill as his last breath left him. The next day, his friend would visit, only to find the player lying dead on the ground with a book in his hand. Reading it would reveal a terrible warning. If you ever come across Disc 16 while exploring, leave it be. Not that it would matter, as certain doom awaits you with the White Enderman, a strange mob that has been cited by players since some of the earliest versions of the game. This Enderman has a special ability, allowing it to reverse whole chunks. It is said to have used this power to produce pure chaos, causing the overworld to look very different in its time. It would often mess with players' houses and kill them by inverting the very blocks they stood on. While regular Endermen take damage from water, the White Enderman's skin actually protected it from moisture, allowing it to traverse freely through rain and actually walk across lakes and oceans. Though powerful, it did have a weakness. Fire would inhibit its teleportation abilities, and when players learned this, they began to use it against the creature, eventually taking back control of the overworld. Players haven't seen this menace in ages, though remnants of its power can still be found in Minecraft today. Its origin is unknown, but some players believe it comes from a yet unexplored dimension. Hopefully, there aren't any creatures on the other side like Nightmare Steve. Everyone knows of Herobrine, but few have heard of Nightmare Steve. Players that find themselves in his shadowy nightmare dimension can never escape. Stuck in a loop of sorrow, these poor souls are doomed to live out their worst fears for an eternity. It always starts in the late hours of a player's world when they're tired and alone. They'll start to hear noises and see a dark figure from the corner of their eye. The next time they sleep after seeing this figure, they will be sucked into a nightmarish dimension. Upon entering, players will be met with shadowy terrain, a dark sky full of phantoms, and the giant figure of Nightmare Steve looming over them. If a player attempts to run from this monster, they'll always find themselves right back where they started. As they stand helpless, Nightmare Steve will consume them, and all of the player's worst fears will flash before their eyes. In an instant, the player will wake up and jump out of bed, likely feeling a moment of relief before leaving their house, only to find that they are still trapped, while in the overworld, their body no longer belongs to them. This nightmare never ends, not even with the Rainbow Warden. This warden is the deadliest of them all. Any player that crosses it is instantly locked into a hypnotic state, unable to move or think while gazing at its colorful skin, before being brutally dismembered by the monster. Even entire groups can be paralyzed at a time, making it impossible to fight back. Known to spawn above ground after a rainfall, it hunts with unmatched speed and aggression. Said to have a special sense, this warden can easily locate creatures with high moisture levels, meaning that anything freshly soaked in rainwater is almost certainly doomed. Along with this, the Rainbow Warden is able to quickly travel underwater, sometimes pulling its unsuspecting victims under the surface, leaving only their items to float back up. While on land, it's believed to use its Rainbow Boom attack to finish off helpless mobs and players in an instant. Originating from an unseen dimension beyond the Rainbow Portal, this variant was outcast by the other Wardens. Because of this, the Rainbow Warden has been known to hunt them, seeking to prove itself and to be the last warden standing. No mob is safe from its horrific hunts, not even those from the Far Lands. Probably the most well-known myth on this list. Horrifying monsters named Farlanders are said to roam throughout, tearing apart anything foolish enough to wander into their hunting grounds. These lands are said to originate from a glitch in the game, and over the years, more haunting stories have surfaced. Players who have entered never return. When they wander through its walls, it's believed that they find the landscape covered in a thick fog before turning around to realize that the walls have shifted and changed, locking them inside. Unusual and terrifying noises can be heard echoing throughout all of the tunnels and walls, causing players to panic. Some would starve, but others would meet a fate much worse. You see, along with the Farlanders, these lands are said to host a number of other creatures that should not exist. Some were born there, while others find themselves trapped like the players. If you happen to find enough food and resources to survive, it's only a matter of time before one of these monsters finds you. Even if by some miracle you escape them, you might still be met with the Golden Zombie Piglin. Whole biomes have been found mysteriously transformed into gold blocks, as this monster is able to turn anything it touches into gold. Originally from the Nether, any piglins that caught sight of him would immediately be turned into statues as they rushed towards it. Breaking free of the dimension when it came across one careless player's portal, it now roams the overworld, hunting players to satisfy its greed. If it catches one, they'll be doomed to the same golden fate. It is said that this poor piglin was turned when it was forced into a pool of liquid gold. Since escaping, some players have attempted to harness this mob to satisfy their own greed. However, they would all fall to its power. Players that learned of this zombie piglin have grown to know only fear. Even other creatures that reside in the Nether are terrified of it, knowing that if it desired, it could spread its curse across all dimensions, changing Minecraft forever, just like the cursed giant Alex. Another well-known myth, this towering terror brings with her nothing but destruction and despair. Thick fogs seem to follow her wherever she goes, making it easier to stalk players, even with her larger size. While she enjoys killing, she seems to prefer playing with her food, often chasing and jump-scaring players until she finally gets bored and eats them. Originally an ancient builder who had helped build up and defend villages from danger, she was cursed by the evil Herobrine. Consumed by a jealousy towards Steve for being more famous, she then turned on players and the very villages she once protected, leaving only suffering in her wake. Eventually betraying Herobrine, she now roams the world on her own, searching for her next victims. Sightings of her have become less and less frequent, and it's believed that she's lying in wait, preparing for her next massacre, haunting Minecraft forever, same as the Ghost Villager. This mob is said to haunt both mobs and players alike. Traveling from village to village, it dries up their crops and drains their chests of items. If the ghost is alerted to a player's presence, it will immediately seek them out and attach itself to their body. If they bring it home, their chest too will slowly be drained of items, and before realizing it, nothing will be left. Finally, that's when he strikes. It is believed that when this ghost villager was still alive, his town was raided by a greedy player, and being the first to discover their items missing, he was found looking inside the open chest of another. Blaming this villager for stealing their wealth, the whole village rallied together and burned him at the stake. However, after death, his spirit stayed with the village. Fueled by hatred and a need for revenge on all, he still haunts villages to this day, stealing everything in sight. But this consuming of items is multiplied 10 times over by the Wither Storm, a monstrous force of nature that absorbs blocks to grow in size and strength. No villages or player bases have been left standing after its devastating attacks. Capable of even traveling through dimensions, the Wither Storm has become a threat to all. Originally created for revenge by a disgruntled adventurer, the Wither Storm quickly adapted and overcame any attempts to control it. Absorbing more and more blocks, it continued to grow in size. Seeing this as an opportunity to spread evil across the land, a group of witches created 3 more withers and sent them into the storm. This multiplied the Wither Storm's size and power. Finally, it had absorbed so much and become so large that nothing could stop it, even sucking in and destroying the witches who had helped it grow. It is said that the Wither Storm is still tearing through Minecraft to this day. Eventually, there may be nothing left.